Diablo 4 is well into its first update, coined Season of the Malignant. Radical balance issues and game-breaking bugs aside, the content introduced in D4's opening season is, well, it's there. Compared to its prime competitor, Path of Exile, some D4 players and potential exiles might be wondering how it stacks up. Are you a hero of Sanctuary interested in what you could experience in PoE? Well, welcome to this judgment-free zone. I'm here to directly compare Diablo 4's first season with Path of Exile's previous leagues, one-to-one in the most fair manner possible. We're going to use D4's first season and 4 prior Path of Exile expansions or leagues, including its very first update, Path of Exile 1.1. Let's go. Before we even explore the gap, oops, a bit of a spoiler there, let's make sure we're on the same page. A Diablo 4 season is the same thing as a Path of Exile league or expansion. In both, players begin on a fresh realm or server with fresh characters, well, mostly fresh in Diablo 4, and a fresh economy, which sure only really matters in PoE, seemingly. These latter resets look to introduce new content, give players new and old a chance to start fresh, and really revitalize community interest in the game. So, with that said, let's look at Diablo 4's premiere Season of the Malignant, then dive into my personal choice of ARPG, Path of Exile. I'm keeping plenty of this high level, everyone. Players of either game should understand everything I'm saying here. Depending on your point of view, this season of Diablo 4 had an absolute ton riding on it. As Diablo 4's first season, Blizzard could be looking to blow player expectations up and deliver a wicked expansion. Or, as D4's first season, they could be quite conservative and clean up and recover from the game's monetarily successful launch. You can wait for a moment to judge, but I'd gander they'd settled with the latter idea. Season of the Malignant introduced a new quest line, a new set of areas called Malignant Tunnels, over 30 Malignant Hearts, which are essentially unique powers you can socket into your items, 1 new boss battle, 6 new unique items, and 7 new legendary aspects, modifiers that modify the way your character plays or their abilities play. The primary content loop of this season revolved around finding malignant monsters, killing them, clicking on their dead body which causes them to respawn, and then killing them again. Upon death, they'll drop one of the malignant hearts, of which there are about 30, each with different powers, like for each unique element you deal damage with, you deal 7 to 12% increased damage for 3 to 10 seconds. Lots of them are class specific. You can also rarely find malignant tunnels that contain plenty of these monsters. 5 of the 6 new unique items are class specific, and none of them were inspiring, despite being decently rare. The new boss, Barshan the Consumed, is essentially a mini-boss, not a full-blown one. However, we've already discussed the bosses of D4 before, so we won't spend too much time on Barshan. Additionally, there's a seasonal journey and a battle pass too. This is a significant part of the game, which is why I'm actually focusing on it quite a bit. The free version contains stuff like experience boosts and okay cosmetics, while the paid version contains plenty of cosmetic items. Of course, the battle pass has 2 levels, premium and accelerated, $10 and $25 respectively. A $70 base price, a 3-tiered battle pass, a cosmetic shop, and future paid expansions. What a deal. That, of course, is compared to PoE's free-to-play model with an MTX shop, a tiny battle pass, and chunky cosmetic supporter packs that can cost quite a bit. All right. That's enough monetization talk. Now, let's delve into what a typical Path of Exile league or expansion entails. Outright outlined by PoE's developers, Grinding Gear Games, every league or expansion in PoE tries to scratch a different set of gamer itches. Yeah, I'll leave that in. Every Path of Exile league must contain story, new combat mechanics, at least 1 long-term objective, aspirational goals, item rewards, some form of crafting, metagame rebalance, and new or touched up skills or ways to use them. Let's hop right into the first of 4 examples we'll be analyzing. Path of Exile's 3.21 expansion and league, Crucible, is a good example of a very recent, smaller content patch. To start, every area contained a Crucible forge. You could choose to insert a weapon into the forge and charge power into it. The longer you charged, the more powerful and greater in number the monsters you spawned. If you defeated said monsters, they would give you experience into the chosen weapon and give it a special Crucible passive skill tree. Essentially a passive skill tree for your weapon with numerous possibilities. In these encounters, you could also encounter a variety of mini-bosses. None were extraordinary in my opinion, but they were challenging opponents with a few interesting abilities, sort of like Varshan. Additionally, the The forged monsters fought in these forge encounters could drop special items that took you to an area called the Forge of the Titans. In this area, you could further iterate on your weapon's Crucible passive skill trees, combining them, rewriting them, and more. Ideally, this is where a wicked pinnacle boss fight would have been, but there wasn't one with this league. Crucible also introduced a new mechanic to the Atlas passive skill tree, allowing you to teleport from one side to the other. It revamped two former league mechanics too, Breach and Abyss, reworking their items and encounters drastically. It also introduced a set of 9 brand new Val skill gems into the game, essentially ultimate-like skills that require the souls of monsters to use, alongside 9 new unique items. A few were absolutely broken and build-defining, but a few were common and near useless. Of course, there were also some big balance changes, but as I ignored that with Season of the Malignant, I'll skip over that here too. Crucible also brought a pseudo battle pass in the form of Kirak's Vault Pass that has a free version with in-game currency rewards and a paid version with cosmetic-only rewards. As with every other league too, it also came with a set of 40 challenges that Exiles could complete for exclusive cosmetic rewards. I got the full armor sets. They're absolutely rad. Before we head on over to a medium-sized PoE league, let me just highlight a few of the huge differences I already see. Enemy variety. The PoE developers know how to reuse assets, and even though many of the forged monsters in Crucible were reused, they looked, felt, and fought differently compared to everything else in Path of Exile. Number 2, constant presence. The Crucible mechanic was present in every single area of the game. You could skip it, of course, but it was there to use it if you wanted to. That's not the case with Malignant Tunnels, Hearts, and Monsters. Number 3, common new items. The new items, like uniques and league-specific items, were common enough that many players could either find them or trade for them, as almost everything is tradable in PoE. Again, in D4, that's not the case. That leaves a major part of a new content patch out of grasp for a decent number of players. Okay, on to the next example league. The league just before Crucible, the Forbidden Sanctum 3.20, is an excellent example of a medium-sized expansion. Some PoE players might scoff at that, but compared to the real meaty ones, it really was a mid-sized update. Sanctum dropped in an entire new content system called the Forbidden Sanctum, a roguelike dungeon in PoE. You entered it, earned relics and boons to bolster your runs, afflictions that hurt you, found tons of currency, fought numerous cool monsters and 4 brand new juicy boss encounters, and juggled a true set of risk versus reward mechanics. Plus, you could find sanctified relics, account-bound items that could drastically change the way your character ran. Alongside those relics, you could loot unique relics off the final boss of the Sanctum, which gave you challenge run opportunities with special rewards. One such unique relic gave you the 100% chance to loot an uber powerful item, Original Sin, off the final boss of the Forbidden Sanctum. The challenge? You had to do the entire dungeon, all 4 floors, without getting hit a single time by any trap or monster. It was quite the challenge and the source of plenty of great content. Atop the addition of Sanctum, which by the way is just returning in full in the 3.22 expansion hitting on August 18th, Sanctum League added a variety of new endgame memory encounters, opening up powerful crafting opportunities for high-end players. It also added 2 new core skill gems and 7 new Val skill gems as well, alongside over 15 new unique items, with a great deal of powerful ones among them, like the aforementioned Original Sin. Additionally, it reworked and essentially rid of the arch nemesis rare monster mechanic, a blessing to many PoE players, and then added an optional new game mode called Ruthless, a revamped version of PoE with super duper loot scarcity. Again, lots of balance updates here, including rebuilding an item type, Jewels, from the ground up. Sanctum also had a paid battle pass with cosmetic-only rewards available for $20, and a set of 40 challenges, as I mentioned before. I'd like to add another key difference I'm noticing about Blizzard's approach to seasonal mechanics versus GGG's, integrating them into the core game. It's a blessing and a curse. If you like tons of content, it's great and something GGG usually does. If a league mechanic is good, they'll find a way to make it core. If it's bad, it stays out. It sounds like Blizzard just won't do that, and the content brought with Season of the Malignant is probably going to disappear once the season ends. That's unfortunate. Regardless, let's focus on the content of the large-sized PoE expansion next. Path of Exile 3.17, whose expansion was Siege of the Atlas with the arch nemesis League attached, is a perfect example of a large PoE league. I need to put it in a list format and stay super high level, otherwise we'd be here for quite some time. Succinctly, Siege packed in the following: an entirely expanded endgame narrative, a massive combined Atlas passive skill tree that allowed complete endgame customizability, 4 new pinnacle bosses, a revamped endgame Atlas experience, a new streamlined but powerful layer of crafting with new Eldritch currencies, over a dozen game-changing accessible unique items, the Arch Nemesis Challenge League, a testing ground for a rare monster and loot rework that allowed players to build their own monsters, and numerous balance changes too. This huge expansion, likely the final enormous endgame expansion before PoE 2's launch in 2024 or 2025, was and still beloved by the community. It set up PoE's endgame to be whatever you wanted it to be through the seamless integration of a second passive skill tree that lets players carve out their endgame experience from the content they'll discover to the rewards they'll receive. Okay, let's zip on back to the Diablo 4 to PoE comparison right now. I hear and read the comments of each and every single viewer. Many of them have said, but Diablo 4 has only been out a few months. Path of Exile has been released for years. Those viewers are right, of course, but there's a few reasons why this has no merit in this particular comparison. Firstly, Path of Exile has set the standard for seasonal ARPGs. Blizzard, being a far larger company with numerous resources, should be able to beat grinding your games easily if they wanted to. They don't. We'll get to why in a moment. They also have quite the history in ARPGs as well, with over a decade of Diablo 3, although upon research, its seasons weren't content-rich either. Second, we can even compare Season of the Malignant to Path of Exile's own 1.1 release, Sacrifice of the Baal. In my PoE 1 flashback series, an informative history of every single release in this live service game, you can get the full rundown on PoE 1.1. Succinctly, it introduced 2 separate league mechanics, a permanent new endgame boss, a set of varied new side areas and mini-bosses, an exciting new risk versus reward crafting currency, and so much more. You may now compare that to Diablo 4 1.1, which added, seemingly, a very temporary and lackluster seasonal mechanic. Venturing back to point number 1 now, Blizzard isn't packing tons of content into these free seasonal updates because they're biding their time for something far more lucrative. Yeah, you know it, Blizzard fans. They're quadruple dipping. Diablo 4 has a box price, a battle pass, a cash shop, and paid expansion packs. Yep, where's the seasonal content Path of Exile packs into its leagues? It's waiting for you to swipe once more and buy the first, second, third, and ad infinitum expansion packs Blizzard will make for Diablo 4. Honestly, it's going to make them a ton of money. It's just down to the player base choosing what they'll handle and what they'd rather play. I know that I'd rather play PoE and choose whether or not to support the company based on whether or not I like the content they're putting out while or after playing it. That's really not a choice with Blizzard's latest ARPG. It's quite unlikely anything will change on the Diablo 4 front unless sales and player numbers take a serious nosedive. Anything can happen, but I'd bet on Blizzard sticking to the quadruple monetization model, tiny seasons, and bulky paid expansions with all the features and content normal PoE leagues experience. However, if any of what I just laid down sounds exciting to you, well, I have great news. You can come right on over to the shores of Rayclast today, right now, become an Exile, and try out Path of Exile for free. I already have a few videos detailing some more differences between the bad D4 and the good PoE. Check them out in the description below. All jokes aside, I fully welcome you as an Exile. You might like PoE, you might hate it and return to D4 or some other game. Both end states are fine. All I'd like you to do is try it out. If it's too much, put it down, do something else. If you turn out to be a true Exile, let me know though. I'm keeping tally of how many souls I'm bringing to this dark and lovely ARPG for our Lord and Savior, Chris Wilson. Huge shout out to all these fellow Exiles who directly support the channel via Patreon or a YouTube membership. You're helping me steadily stride toward what I've coined as my mega computer. If you'd like to see more videos, like, subscribe, and share this video with your own exiled friends. You can even join our Discord server, the link is below. I'm on Twitch now a bit too, check Talkative Try out there, or dive into these juiced up videos on your screen. Every minute you watch helps the channel grow. To all those who've watched until this ultimate moment, D4 bad, PoE good, Talamoana.